I don't want to cut you short any more than I already have. Bob Pollock from the Extension joining us on the line. You can give Bob a call at 479-1160. You want to talk to him. Brought to you by Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good.
That's wonderful.
Good, and you?
I'm terrific. But one of the things that I wanted to talk with you about is this dry weather. I think this is like 15 days in a row that we have not had a spot of rain. Although I thought yesterday coming in I saw some wet roads, but at any rate, it's been dry for the fall. And usually in October that picks up, doesn't it?
Yes, it usually does. Usually by September we get a little more consistent rainfall patterns, and that has not happened this year.
Yeah, that's
I guess
because
we
of
used up all our rain the last 3 to 4 years, and now the skies are dry.
Yeah, well, usually it's because of the hurricane season. There have been plenty of hurricanes, but none of them have tracked into our area, and that's created this dry weather. So what I'm going to do right now, I've got a caller, so I'm going to put you on hold and then bring you back so that I can have you both on the air, okay? All right, so let's put Bob on hold there. And click there, and we should be good. Bob, good morning to you, and good morning to our caller.
Good morning. My question is, we had a walnut tree taken down, and they ground up the stump. Would that stump ground up be good mulch, or would it put too much acid in the soil?
Good question.
Well, it won't put too much acid in the soil, but you'll just have to be a little careful of what you mulch with it. There are plants that are very sensitive. Tomatoes comes right to the top of the list on sensitivity to the juglans compound that's in the walnut. And so it's poisonous to some plants. So it will outright kill certain things. Tomatoes is one of them. Other plants, though, are resistant to it, or it doesn't have any effect on them. And a lot of ornamentals fall into that group of plants that are okay. And, of course, grass grows under walnut trees and things like that. But that's probably the only real caution there. The other secondary thing is when it's fresh like that, it would be good to compost it a little while, let it age, because as it decays, the organisms that help to break down that sawdust over time use nitrogen as a food source. So if you take fresh sawdust, not just from the walnut, but from any tree, and you spread that around, you can get some nitrogen deficiencies in plants. They'll start and turn yellow because there isn't enough nitrogen there to feed the plant and also the organisms that are breaking down that compost or the sawdust.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for calling. All right, that's an interesting little thing you got going on there, Bob. I had no idea.
Yes. Yeah, there's a whole list. You can Google a list of plants affected by juglans.
Juglans. Yeah, spell that. Juglens?
Jug, yes, Lans.
Okay.
So that's a compound that's in walnut trees, and it's, I guess we would call that maybe a defensive mechanism that the tree has to outcompete or compete with other things. So when those seeds are germinating and those start to grow, to ward off some of the competition, it has this chemical compound that helps to do that.
So like a walnut tree is the big bully on the block.
It can be, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to plant a vegetable garden underneath a walnut tree.
Okay. Well, good to know.
The walnut tree will win.
Good to know. And it's sort of, well, never mind. I was going to talk about my parents had a great big walnut tree, and they would get those bagged tomatoes and put them underneath there, and I don't think they did as well, and now I know why. Well,
of course, if they were bagged tomatoes, they they were in containers.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that would be okay. Although you could have had enough shade that could have influenced that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's in the
when you're planted, it's in the soil. It's given off by the root system, and so it's kind of a general effect within the area in the root zone of where that tree's growing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Wanted to ask you about some of our favorite invasive pests. Of course, we've been talking a lot about spotted lanternfly, and I know Penn State's involved in the study there. I don't know that there's any new information on that, but are there others that become pests for us in the fall, or are those generally going to be more evident through the summer months?
Probably more evident during the growing season. Some of those they're around, so you have invasive weeds and plants, and they can be. A lot of those are deciduous plants, so they'll lose their leaves in the fall and go dormant, or they might go to seed, and the seed will be there over the winter. And one of the ways we can help ourselves out is to not let some of these weeds, whether they're invasive or not, go to seed, because that seed bank, those plants can produce a lot of seed. It may not look like that when you're looking at the plant, but a lot of seed is produced, and then when those seeds get in the soil, then they're there to germinate when conditions are right to do that. And it's amazing now, you just look around outside, some of the things that have been more affected by this dry weather than others, the weeds seem to keep going. They're not quite, a lot of them won't be as thrifty as they might have been had they had a little bit more moisture. But for the most part, they seem to hang on one way or another.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about the lanternfly. The spotted lanternfly, how does it overwinter? What does it do?
So the adult moths will lay egg masses this fall.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so they overwinter as eggs.
And they'll lay them where? On trees?
They'll lay them on all kind of different surfaces. So it could be a tree. It could be the side of a house or a building or a camper or a vehicle or any number of things.
Uh-huh.
And that's part of the reason they can spread, is that those moths can lay those egg masses on these, might be a train car.
Mm-hmm.
Or, so in a camper is a good example, because when we're done, usually in camping season, that camper will be parked somewhere, and so then it's just there, and they can lay egg masses on there.
Okay.
And then in the spring, you hook it back up again and go. So then you're transporting that egg mass, and then if it's at the right time, and when those eggs hatch, then we've just moved that from point A to point B.
Yeah. Okay. Well, spotted lanternfly and all of our other insects, they manage to make themselves ubiquitous. Anything else we need to talk about this morning in terms of lawns, gardens, trees, all of those things as we continue to look at the fall?
We've had some great weather. If you were trying to maybe reseed or seed spots in the yard or do some maintenance kind of things like that, the weather's been great for that. However, we haven't had the moisture that if you seeded, the seed may not have come up yet. Mm-hmm. We really need moisture there to do that, and then with the drier weather, we're trying to conserve water as best we can, so you might normally water that just to get it started, and you could probably do that anyhow, depending on your water source, just to get that seed up and germinated. And then you might have plants that you want to transplant this fall, maybe you have some perennials or plants you want to move. Mm-hmm. It's so dry now that you may want to water those, just one good watering a week to get that ground soaked and get those plants to take up a little bit of moisture before you would dig and move them to another location.
Okay. All right. So those are good hints and good tips for us here on this Friday morning. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thanks for the opportunity.
Good to be with you. It is Bob Pollock, and it's the voice of Indiana County, WCCS, 101.1 FM and AM 1160.